One and
good evening. You're flying with Pod Squadron podcast. All wings report in. This is Andy, Pod Job, standing by.
This is Tracy, Pod Tracer, standing by.
this is Pod Father, Pod Rod, standing by.
The voice of Pod.
The voice of Pod, standing by.
All ships to attack formation. Ship mission objectives to talk about Star Wars in movies, streaming, animation, books, themed experiences, and your art and inspiration from a galaxy far, far away. Today's flight plan includes episode 10 of Andor. One way out. And for all of you out there, all com channels are open. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Find us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you know when we have new content. But first, I'll be your squad leader for today. I'm storyteller, puppeteer, performer, and fight choreographer. On my wing is Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and I do things. It is a little. Jason was supposed to be here, but he'll be back next week.
And on my other wing, hopping into a cockpit, is Rodney.
Hello, everyone. I'm normally the voice in the sky, but just started to join in today. Lexi is unavailable today, and also Jason is unavailable today. So I decided to jump in and get behind, instead of behind the camera and mic, in front of the camera and the mic. So glad to be here.
And of course, we are just one squad in this fleet. We're part of the Geekish Network. Excuse me. Right here on both on YouTube and Facebook. Find all of the other shows throughout the week, including Geek Beast, which is right after us. S-Foils to attack position. We're going in. All right, we're gonna jump right in because there was so much excitement as the series Star Wars Andor has led us to this point for episode 10, One Way Out. This is, of course, the big jailbreak that was teased.
Should we have a quick disclaimer?
Say what?
Should we have a little disclaimer that it looked like we were going to talk about Tales of the Jedi, but we decided to wait until next week when Lexi's back because there was a lot of Ahsoka in there. So
Yeah.
Don't be fooled by our social media posts.
So we'll get to it, we promise. A lot of exciting stuff and some really good lore in Tales of Jedi, but we wanted our good friend Lexi around for all of that goodness. So we'll get to that next week. But we're gonna jump right into Star Wars Andor. Initial thoughts. Either of you wanna start us off?
Climb. This is if Cassian Andor has a family motto, it should be climb.
Climb. Yes. Once again, we have the climax of a story of Cassian, where someone yells at him, "Climb." I'm really curious if this is going to be a running motif now, right? If this is going to be even in episode 2 or in season 2, how other ways it can force him to climb.
Sure, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, and now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, it's an ongoing thing for him, right?
Yeah.
It is. K2 told him to climb, and there was another one that
Yeah.
told
So
him to
KT
climb.
tells him to climb. The Nemec tells him to climb the ship
Yeah, time to climb the ship
during the Eye of Aldani, and of course now, everyone climbs the elevator to get out of the prison at Narkina 5, as they make their big jailbreak. How about you, Rodney? What's your like initial hot take?
My initial hot take is, I mean, one, just the episode's amazing. I've been loving Andor, every bit of Andor. But I think my biggest take is, I think this is one of the best pieces of Star Wars we've had in a very long time. Just the whole episode, was just filled with so many amazing moments, but just automatically iconic moments.
Yeah.
Do you think all the people who were like haters in the beginning because they thought it was boring are now eating their words?
It feels like that I mean, I just, as I scan, what isn't trolling Elon Musk on internet right this week has been Star Wars fans going, oh, this actually is really good. It's like it just takes a little bit of patience, and that's what I've been saying all this time. Just be patient.
The payoff is unbelievable, and it's still only episode 10, right? There's still 2 more episodes, so. Yeah, I think one of my other things is, before we go even further on in detail, but I've rewatched the last scene at least 4 times, probably 5 times now.
You're talking about the monologue scene for
Luthen and
Luthen.
Was it Lino or
I can't remember
80s
his name.
porn stash.
Yeah, let me look it up. But yeah, it's basically just that whole sequence. I mean, even just them going, the whole spyness of it, right? With the dead drop and the signal, and he like, hey, you gotta go, and just like the putting the earpiece in, just the whole tension. But then that moment when the door first opened and Luthen's just standing there, and
with
then
his
like,
cape.
yeah, the cape's floating, yeah, and it's just like. It's so iconic, right? He's on that walkway, and it's just like,
it's also
no
just
handrails.
it's such an interesting dynamic, right? And of course, we are obviously in spoiler territory, so if you haven't watched this episode, what are you doing? But so yeah, we're talking about this final scene, and of course, we find out that Luthen has been called by one of his operatives to meet. And Clea, of course, is like, I can go, and he's like, no, I'll go, and and then we find out that it looks like one of Deidre Miro's, I don't know about rivals, but one of her peers in the ISB is actually a plant working for Luthen. And
were you surprised it was Ginger Porn Stash?
I was actually surprised. I was surprised by the idea of a mole entirely. It was such a cool, like, oh, that's, I mean, of course it makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. They would have a mole, right? Yeah.
But it was also the way they revealed it, right? It was also more of this as he's going deeper into the underlevels of Coruscant, and things get more and more seedy and more claustrophobic, to the point that he's literally trapped in an elevator, and with an earpiece, conversing with Luthen, and literally talking about, as metaphorically the walls of this elevator are closing in around him,
and he's
basically
down.
talking about in real life,
and
everything is closing in on me. The camera work,
and being super close up.
Yeah,
and he's going to the depths of Coruscant,
right?
Like 300 something levels,
but like express level down to hell, right? Like he's just.
It's also a great setup too, in terms of we know that Luthen talks to people without ever being seen, and so for him to like just kind of be vulnerable on a typical Star Wars catwalk with no handrails.
Yeah.
And face to face with this guy and basically
And it's always windy too.
Yes, of course.
Like I would like blow off the sign.
and he's just standing there. Like
a badass.
He's just like a badass. He's just standing there like a badass. And
but fascinatingly like vulnerable, right? It's kind of a thing where it's like, no, I need you. Like you're not going anywhere. Yeah. And I love this. It's crazy because we've been talking about, this is in contrast to, the jailbreak is going on. Everyone is going to get out. There's 49 men or 50 men per workroom. Yeah. And then when he says, no, you can't get out, you're too deep in there. And if 50 people die, you're worth it.
You're more valuable. Yeah.
Right. Which is also, then you get into more of this kind of morally gray of how do you value life, and the kind of the strategy that Luthen is playing, the game that Luthen is playing.
And I think that's exactly what I'm getting at too, Andy. What you're saying is that one of the reasons why I am so enamored by what Andor is doing is, and again, we're comparing things, but it's just the nature of it. We have to, right? We have all this other Star Wars that has come before, and here we have Andor, where there are so many layers to what is happening within Andor. There is so much depth, there is so much density to the storytelling, to the themes that they're talking about, the choices that everyone's making, the storytelling choices that they're making, the acting it's just, there's so much to discuss and dissect, and there's stuff that's on the camera, there's subtle things that you catch, and then there's so much show don't tell. I mean, I can go on and on, but basically what I'm trying to say is that it is so layered, that it's just so refreshing to me, that it's so sophisticated in its storytelling.
Particularly when we're tracking so many characters, and of course everything still culminates in what is ultimately 1 hour kind of meditation on the implications of sacrifice and leadership, right? Which is how
I mean, does your camera follow you?
I was noticing that too. It's kind of
yes, it does.
It's like a little pan and scan. It's like, whoa.
So talking about about like all the characters we're keeping track of, now I find myself wanting to pay closer attention to the kind of B characters, because for some reason, and at first I thought, okay, why did they focus in on this guy? He's not necessarily one of Deidre's allies. He's not necessarily one of her protagonists. Why are we focused? And at first I thought maybe it was because he just looked so classic 80s Star Wars. And now, but it was like, but he was just kind of keeping his head down, right? Like doing just enough, but not too much. And, now, I realize that that's because he's basically trying to fly under the radar so that no one suspects him and he doesn't bring any attention to himself, right? But now I'm like, who else have we been kind of seeing around that maybe is gonna have, a bigger part to play? And I also just realized that we didn't even see Deidre or what's his face? Snot Nose. Yeah, Cyril. Yeah, that we didn't even see them this episode at all.
Galactic incel.
Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, we didn't even see them this episode.
Which is great, right? And he's like, basically it's the prison break, Mon Mothma, and then Luthen, right? And it is, and going back to what you were saying, Tracy, it was I was thinking about that too, and I bet you on a rewatch we'll probably even pick up more things
to go back and look at some of those other ISB scenes and see what he's doing, right?
Yeah, but I guess the other reason why, one of the aspects of the storytelling is it kind of just boils down to, this is a classic spy thriller, right? It is a prison break. It is a rebellion, but there's also that espionage factor to it, which we just haven't gotten in Star Wars. It's been hinted at and all this stuff, but like, this is like any spycraft movie that you watch. And, you know, Tony Gilroy wrote Born Identity, right? So he was heavily involved with that. Michael Clayton, you know, he won an Oscar for Michael Clayton, which is somewhat, you know, Michael Clayton was a fixer and he was kind of like a Luthen type character, right? He was going around and fixing things for his clients. But yeah, I just think
he has a very specific skill set.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And one of the things too was really great. It was like, they even sort of hinted at like the vow, right? Like, I've been thinking about that too. Is like,
sorry, the what?
The vow. Like, you took
The
a
vow.
vow.
The vow everybody is like everybody's
vow,
so
yes.
serious.
Yeah,
It's like
the
anytime
vow,
somebody tries to
yeah.
get out, no, you took a vow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what's this almighty
yeah.
vow?
So right, like Mon Mothma says it to Vel, her niece or cousin, right? And then Luthen says it to the, you know,
To Lonnie, yeah.
to Lonnie, and you know, so I started wondering, it's like, were they all just sort of like, who else took that vow, right? So that makes me think, who else took that vow? Where did they take that vow? Did they, like, I was seeing some speculation online that like maybe they were at the funeral of Padme and they were all there, and they all, because like Bail Organa's there, right? Like,
I mean, it also makes you question, you know, who actually knows who is in this, right? Because we've heard Mon Mothma say only 3 people in the galaxy know what I'm actually working on, right? So, but obviously she knows what her cousin is running missions somewhere, right? She doesn't necessarily
But
know.
Vel
what
is
missions.
incredibly protective of Luthen's identity.
Right.
And so is Kriya. What's her name? The chick who
girlfriend?
works with Luth.
no,
the chick who works with
Clea.
Clea.
Which,
Sorry,
why
I did
everybody
not sleep
thinks-
much last night, so names are gonna be like escaping me. Like all I can think of right now is that Andy Serkis's character's name sounds like a vaginal yeast infection cream, and I can't remember what his actual name is.
Kino.
So I'm really sorry. Kino Loy. Thank you.
It sounds
I'm
like
not going to remember anybody's name tonight.
It sounds like a card game to me, right? Like,
well, I mean,
Kino Loy? Or like Keloids?
I mean, Lonnie Jung, for that matter, too. It's like Lonnie Jung.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I also want to just call out too, right? And you know, I've been posting about this on social media, right? But this whole arc, this 3-episode arc, was actually written by Beau Willimon, who, if you are a fan of House of Cards, you know, he was the creator of that show. He was head writer on that show, and once they got to Luthen's monologue, I totally did a double take, because I was like, this feels so, and it actually made me curious, so I looked it up, and I'm like, I totally caught it.
I did the same thing, Andy. I looked right away. Other episodes, I didn't look up the writer, and then I looked him up, and I was like, holy shit, he was showrunner of House of Cards for like 4 seasons, the first 4 seasons.
And so,
I'm
like, you know,
that makes sense, and he's a playwright, and so it makes total
He's a pirate?
sense. Playwright. I mean, he might be a pirate too, but I don't know. But
yeah, I mean, and so, I mean, because it was he goes full Richard III, right? I mean, it's just straight monologue, you know. I mean, he's framed very, very lovely, and it's like, and you get the sense of it, but it's like, it's really just him. It's giving Skarsgård language to chew on, and
that everything is like his con.
Yeah. So I'm just going to take a little time. I just want to read through this, because it is fantastic. Lonnie asks, "And what do you sacrifice?" And he says, "Calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless place." I love that image. I share my dreams with ghosts. We don't know what ghosts, right? But it's another strong image.
People he's sacrificed.
Well, I mean, okay, we'll get into like the conspiracy theories, but you know, but of course, we know a lot of people have died. He's, you know, had 15 years since the clone. Okay, I'm getting off the
Okay, keep it.
I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago, from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearned to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
It makes me think of like the CIA, where it's like every time a CIA agent dies, like they put a star in the lobby, but you will never know who that person was.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
well,
it's like,
and I love all of these kind of, there's allusions to lightness and dark. There's
the morality of it, right? Like
the morality of it.
My
but
tools
it's also,
are my enemy, right?
Embracing his own darkness, right? The fact that, you know, he does, it alludes to the fact that he does feel every life that he plays carelessly with, right? That he,
I think it's too, like the embracing the finality of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's embraced that there's no hope for him, right?
Yeah.
That he's not going to see a sunrise. He's not going to see the sunrise. He knows that he is on a path that, like, he's not going to come out of this alive or whatever, right? He just knows. And
that, or also the idea that if he is successful at what he has plotted, that the world will have no place for someone like him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's,
he won't belong to that new world.
Incredibly poetic. That kind of calls back to one of the previous episodes where Clea kind of glares at him about Mon Mothma and says, "I hope she's worth it," right? And of course, he just, with a look, just gives her a look back. But I mean, I think of that moment, and I felt it there, where it's like, oh, he's invested in her. He knows that she has to be the face and the leader of this because he cannot be.
And it kind of reminds me of, and I know we're sort of jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a parallel there too with Cassian.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
There's a parallel with Cassian because he's coming into that lead. He's not the one that gets on the mic and says, you know, he's not the one that like tells the floor, right? He has, you know, they get into the room and he's like, "Hey, tell them." He tells Kino to tell them.
And he says,
but he knows all the note. He has all the same knowledge, but he's like, he has to be Kino, right? And then later on, he Kino's the one that convinces everybody on the floor to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then also, Kino, when they get on the mic, Cassian is the one that convinces him. And then if you go further in Rogue One, he's also, you know, he's standing behind, you know, Jane Erso, right? He's not the one saying, "Hey, rah, rah, rah." He's like, "No, you know what? You're the face. You're the leader." Like and that's like pure leadership more. And then people might think like, "Oh, he's not." So the parallel between Luthen and Cassian is there. And that actually even brings more depth to why Luthen is seeking out Cassian.
Yeah.
Right? Because he knows because he's like that, right?
Well,
he
and
needs
it's
people
also
like that to spurn everyone else to do the right things.
And it's also, he speaks to that too, as he's trying to explain to Lonnie Jung why he can't leave, and he says, "I need heroes."
Yeah.
Right? Because ultimately,
right to that shot of
he's
him
not a hero.
Yeah.
Right? That is to say, I'm not a. Well, he's saying that Luthen is saying, "I am not a hero. I need other people to be heroes." Right?
And it kind of reminds me of like, you know, not to get too in depth. You know, I was in the Navy, a naval intelligence specialist. So I had a top secret clearance. I don't talk about it much because it's just is what it is. I don't, you know. But I did come across a
Happy
lot
Veterans Day, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
3 days ago, but
Yeah, no, thank you. But the only reason why I bring that up is because there is a parallel there too, and this is kind of going back to what Luthen was saying, and he's saying I need heroes. So in his, I kind of look at him as like he's using all the tools in his basket, right? He's using all the tools at his disposal. He's using the tools of his enemy, right? He says that. I'm using the tools of
I
my
wake up
enemy.
every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. Yeah. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight. Wait, okay, I can't find it. Where is it? The tools of it. Where's the tools of my enemy line? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future.
So I bring that up just really
like a dying
briefly.
star.
Yeah, just really briefly is, when as an intelligence specialist and having that touchdown clearance, I did come across, and I actually had to go to school in my A school. You actually go to school. Sounds like you're on a. Maybe that's why I'm bringing this up, because I feel like I'm a ship right now, and I'm just like
that sound, that weird sound.
Like
what is that?
Like
sorry, there's still technical stuff happening. So our sound designer is making creepy sounds behind me.
But so. Just really, I'll finish this real quickly. Is I came across a lot of Navy SEALs, and I had to work with a lot. I had to work with a lot that didn't make it, but they became intelligence specialists. And when you talk to them, okay, and if anybody ever has, when you talk to them, they are off. There is something in their brains and their makeup that you realize they could kill you, to snap and kill you, but that's also why they do what they do, right?
Well,
there's something off that makes them push themselves to these limits, and they realize they are a tool, and they're a tool for a specific purpose. So with Luthen saying I'm doing all this stuff because he realized he is also a tool for a specific purpose, and then when this rebellion is successful, he is no longer going to be a part of that because he's designed for one thing, So that's my.
Funny enough, the Navy SEAL that I knew growing up, you would never guess walking down the street that he was a Navy SEAL, because they very rarely look like The Rock, right? Yep. Like this guy honestly didn't look that different from Ginger porn stash, except he had shorter hair, but he had the same porn stash, and he was probably about 5'4" and looked like he weighed about 130. Mm-hmm. The guy's a Navy SEAL, and he was totally batshit crazy.
they're off, right? There's several screws missing, or just twisted a different way, right? But
I should find the pictures of my high school graduation. He's in all those pictures.
That's the other thing I do say about that is, and I mean, but it goes to what you're saying too, applying back to the Star Wars, right? You're right. He doesn't look like a spy, right? He wouldn't look like he looks like a typical fascist guy, but he doesn't look like the good guy spy, right? He looks like the bad guy spy.
But look at Cassian. Cassian's not like a big buff guy.
It's just so fascinating to me in that regards. But
I also love too, right? I mean, we've alluded to this in the past, right? Where we've seen this shift that he makes from his, Luthen when he's behind closed doors, and as he puts on his shopkeeper face and the wig and all that, and he actually does, with the wig and the robe, I think they've made some conscious decisions in terms of how he resembles Ian McDiarmid as Chancellor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Right.
With the kind of curl.
Sith vibes, right?
And
so giving that Sith vibes.
And of course, all of these, meetings behind closed doors do resemble hooded, Darth Sidious behind closed doors. It's so it is the tools of my enemy. Yeah. So I am gonna jump. I was gonna save this for a little later, right? So okay, so there are some fan speculation theories, which I don't think it's gonna play out, but it is still a really interesting parallel of is Luthen perhaps a Jedi in hiding, right? Because we've seen him carry his walking stick, which extends very much like a lightsaber. We know that he has this crystal that means more to him than Cassian will ever know, and he has forced himself to embrace this kind of dark side methodology with an equation he wrote 15 years ago, which would have been
Order 66.
Or would have been Order 66 and the Declaration of the Empire. I don't think they're going to go that way, but it's a cool theory.
I say no, but maybe he's related to somebody who became a Jedi or like a friend.
Yeah,
like that Kyber crystal is from the lightsaber of somebody that died.
Right.
That was close to him. That was like maybe
I don't think he himself is Force sensitive. I think other things would be happening if he was.
I mean, it could also be that, maybe, I mean, I'm still just letting myself go down this rabbit hole. I don't actually think this is the way it'll go. But it's also interesting, of course, as someone who collects all of these antiquities and, of course, does have holocrons in his back room and, ancient Sith armor and, could part of that be that the Kyber crystal is also what masks his Force sensitivity as well. And so
does it work that way?
There's allusion to that in some of the novels and stuff, right? That because
Danny's saying he knows politicians, so he very likely used to know Jedi.
Yeah. True. I do hope they dig into some of that origin of where he came from, he wrote this equation that he speaks of.
He's such a badass, man. Just like,
do you guys realize we're
also
wonderfully a half hour tragic, and we haven't even talked about the prison.
About the other stuff.
That's what I'm saying. That's right. I watched that scene 5 times. Like, this is so. Oh my god! Like, give him the Emmy now, right? Him and Andy Serkis. Like, Andy Serkis is supporting role, and then Luthen as like main actor, right? It's just.
Well, okay, so again, and of course, talking about leader, what it means to be a leader, and the sacrifices that go into that, right? We also, of course, have the subplot with Mon Mothma, who meets with what is his name? The mob boss, and of course, he's not asking for a bribe or anything else. She makes
General
it very clear.
Zod. I was just calling him General Zod.
I wanna pay you for your services to launder my money, but he basically says, well, I think all I want is to arrange an introduction for your daughter and my son, to ultimately legitimize him and bring him up into upper society. And it is such a chilling scene where she basically says, get the fuck out of here. This is some bullshit. And fuck Perrin, fuck everyone, and he says to her, "That's the first thing you've lied to me about this whole time." When she says,
"I'm not thinking
about it," which is like, oh my god, this is like chilling.
Yeah, I think that.
Sorry, guys, my internet keeps farting.
It's all good. For the internet, that scene too, just the way it was acted, the way it was directed,
how it was shot too.
Was shot like.
Okay, which scene? Because my internet farted.
The scene where Mon Mothma is meeting with the crime lord and
indecent proposal.
Yes, and he wants to set up the introduction with her daughter and his son. Did we lose Tracy? Tracy's frozen. We've lost Tracy.
We might have lost Tracy.
Yeah, I mean, there's an incredible image there with her at the center of the frame, with the crime lord on one end, on the far screen, right side of the screen, and then what's his name? Her friend Tay Kolma
Is
on the
other
far
side.
left, right? And you can feel just all that space between them, kind of crushing down around her.
And she's in the center. She's being
Right.
pulled different ways.
And of course, just that questioning of morality for her, of basically devil on each shoulder, more or less, right? Such a great image.
Welcome back.
There.
Yeah, I think
I missed it all over again. I'm just gonna try and keep up.
Take Homa taking the crime lord to meet Mon Mothma and making the indecent proposal to set up the meeting with
and
her
the
daughter.
language that they were speaking that was not really what they
Oh yes, all the
were
double
speaking.
speak is
Got it.
fantastic.
The double speak, but then also too,
Let's
like
pimp out my 13-year-old.
Yeah, right. And then he implies that it's like an older tradition that they normally did, and yet they've kind of moved past that. But she doesn't want to move that, so it's like
And of course,
too,
within the context of her own horrible marriage with Perrin.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, so we now, but then even that line gives us more insight into why their marriage is so horrible.
Right.
Right. Whereas like you saw it, but you didn't have to. It didn't have to be told. Right. It was just like in these sort of like these lines and the way they've acted. And so going back to the way it's shot. I'd be interested to really like go back and really go frame by frame, almost like every frame is a painting type of analysis, because the way they shoot the stuff in Mon Mothma's apartment is so fascinating to me because it's all very symmetrical, right? You always have somebody to the left, to the right, somebody in the center. Even those doorways that they walk through, they're all very symmetrical. You have the round windows, but then she's like framed against those windows and looking out. Like, it's just a masterclass to me in like visual storytelling and using that, and just like the cinematography is really not just like, hey, this is a really cool shot. It's like, no, it's telling stuff. It's telling a story. It's helping tell the story and further the narrative, and it's just amazing to me.
Craftsmanship is fantastic.
They have
and
a lot
so
of sets
much
in this series too.
They do.
I feel like a lot more than other series.
It's fascinating to me that both of these other subplots are so relatively stagnant. It's like no action in these. It's literally people sitting in rooms talking, or talking in double speak, or whatnot, and it absolutely contributes to ramping up the tension when we cut back to the jailbreak, right? Which is also tension filled, right?
Tension filled, yeah.
I mean, we knew that vaginal cream wasn't going to make it, right? Like at some point, like there was
I let myself get caught up in it. So when he says I can't swim, it was tragic. I was so crestfallen.
Well, I was expecting Andor to reach back and grab him and help him, but then and I think that's what he was thinking too, and then he got knocked over the side.
Yeah.
Sorry, my alcohol's starting to kick in, so I might get a little loud.
That's okay.
Which is great.
Rodney and I talk too much, so
Yeah. I'm like,
guys.
I'm totally.
God, I have to like fight to get a word in. Jesus.
We're just trying to. But
it's like ram myself in there. Sorry.
So, what did you guys think of? So let's talk about the prison thing. Like, what did you guys think of all of that? Like, just.
I mean, like all of the buildup, right? You can see how doubtful everyone, all of the anxiety leading up to the moment, right? And also, such a wonderfully kind of, again, with the macro and micro themes, right? The shot of Cassian in his bunk, eyes wide open, before the jailbreak, to
Watching the day switch or the shift number switch.
well to mirror Nemec, right? If you remember, there was that whole exchange where Nemec was like, how is it that I can't sleep, and I'm the one who's dedicated to this cause, and you care about nothing and you sleep like a baby, right? And now here we are, and the tables have turned where Cassian is now in the position of convincing and, literally screaming into the air as no one was listening to him. And now he's, heading up this mission and he can't sleep. Right. It's just another level of, it's like poetry, it rhymes.
Paul asked in the chat, "Does that sucks? What do you think happened to him?" I think he's talking about Kino or vaginal cream. I think he dies and becomes Snoke.
I don't think he didn't know that he was going to make it out. I think that it's like when I go to a convention, I assume that this mentality of being infest. Whoa, goodness sakes!
We're gonna cut you off. We're gonna cut you off.
Oh,
too much drink.
Goodness, just lost my glass. I don't. Anyway, I take on this persona of being like infected, right? So that's how I deal with my OCD of being at a convention. I feel like in order for him to get through this prison break, he had to take on this persona of already being dead, right? And so, but I think that once they got to the control room, I think he thought, I might actually make it out of this, and I'm going to rally these troops. And I mean, this is my Braveheart moment, right? Yeah. And then for him to get to that edge and see that the only way out was to swim and know, but see all these other guys have the chance to make it out. Andy Serkis is so brilliant that those little micro looks in his eyes, you can kind of see him, just like this combination of pride, of victory, of like all these things are running through his mind in that moment. And we don't see him die, so it's my hope that we actually do see him again, just because I want to see more Andy Serkis, and we don't get to see him enough as just himself and not in a 3D whatever.
Yeah,
we have a porn person on the chat.
I'll fix
it. I totally agree with you. I don't think it's going to pay off into anything else, because honestly, they're down to 2 more episodes. They've got other stuff to wrap up. But it would be very interesting and very cool if, sad for the character, but cool for him to ultimately be captured by once reinforcements arrive, and seeing him interrogated by Dietrich Miro, and see how
I didn't even think about that.
See how Kino is changed by this experience. It's also a great moment for Deidre to have a very frustrated little lip curl as she realizes that Cassian was in their custody this whole time.
In the system.
Yeah. Yeah. So fingers crossed that I hope that that's a moment we get, but I don't think I think there's other more important things they can move on to.
I hope they come out with a Cyril cereal.
Right. They really should.
I would buy that.
They really should. It is interesting. I've been listening to, one of my favorite podcasts is The Watch, right? And they've actually had Tony Gilroy on twice now, right? One at the very beginning, and then they just had him on after episode 10. And that's one of the things they asked him. And they go like, "Hey, are you guys ever
really?"
Gonna have it? Yeah, they really did. They really asked him if they're really gonna have it. But I wanted to bring that up.
It doesn't even need to have blue milk, Paul, because the cereal will turn the milk blue.
Blue milk, but I think you need to have blue milk, right? I think.
Well, but how are they going to do that? The cereal itself will turn the milk blue, because they can't sell I mean, I guess there's milk that's like shelf stable, but
just
ew.
blue milk with like blue food coloring, right? Yeah, but it's really interesting. One of the things he said, and going back to the prison, was, and this is again, I think the reason why it's so good is they said they sat in the writers' room and they just kind of like, okay, we need this, what are this? But if we're gonna do a prison scene, like a prison scene or a prison break, like how it has to be different than anything you've ever seen, right? And then somehow somebody, he said he doesn't even remember who. But he said somebody in the room suggested electrified floors. And then from there, it was just like, bing. And then they just took off with it. Right. And because, yeah, right. We've never seen that before. I've never seen that in anything. Just the
I love the fact that that everything on there is like they're always fighting to be on schedule, both the workers and the guards. And what do we know about the Death Star? That it's always behind schedule. Right?
It's just this big machine, right? That they're feeding. It's like, I think, like you're saying, the system. It's a systemic, right? This big fascist machine that they're feeding, and that it doesn't care. It's like,
did I send it to you guys, the IKEA instructions for like the thing? It was Lego.
Lego.
It was like Lego
Yeah.
instructions.
Lego
for the thing that they're building, whatever it is.
And some people, everybody's trying to figure out what
I
they're
really
building
think it's
too,
like the joints. I think it's the joints that like
Part
that
of
give
the
it
Death
its
Star?
spherical shape. Yeah.
It's almost like the I-beams, almost like steel.
Right.
Steel
Yeah.
I-beams,
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. That's what I think.
Yeah, because they would need a shit ton of that, right? They would need a lot of that, and so it's just so fascinating.
Yes. So I mean, I loved watching like how it played out too, right? Because of course, we see a lot of people just straight up get shot, right? Yeah. I mean, they spent so much time with Cassian climbing underneath the thing, and a lot of people, the prisoners who are throwing tools and parts at the guy with the blaster, that just like, really kind of working up that tension until finally he kicks out his leg, shoots the other guy, and it's like, yes, to kind of milk that.
Well, even them doing in their prepared thing, but them having like tools in their hands instead of just having their hands up.
Yeah, where they're on program. Oh, okay, yeah. And another great moment of once they make it to the main command center, and it ends up being this, like, we've been hearing this deep voice of God, and it ends up being this little teenager. And the first thing they say to them,
he does have gray hair.
He did? Okay.
He does have gray hair.
He looked really young. He looked
really young. He had that young look. Yeah.
A little high with the high voice.
We joke about Rodney being the voice of Rod, the voice of God. That was what he's listed in in the credits is the voice of God. And so the other guy who is listed in the credits as Apostle because he just like listens to everything that they say.
And of course, the first thing they say to them is on program.
Yeah,
is
on
like
program.
Another cool.
On program, that's it.
I love to, just like the guys have a gun to their head and he's like, turn it all off. He's like, well, you don't understand. I mean, it's too hard to turn it back on if it's all on hydroelectric. And it's like, and you can see, and of course it's like, these guys are very much innocents who have been sucked into this, this kind of fascist regime, this it's machine.
A job.
Right.
Yeah.
And there might not be jobs available, right? We know from Cyril that the jobs are not super easy to come by. He has to ask a favor from his uncle. But I thought that those whirlpool things were keeping the thing afloat. So when they turn it off and the thing's still standing, that made me wonder, like, is it on some kind of like pole that's in the seafloor? Like, I was half expecting the thing to sink. When the hydro system was turned off.
I think it was just for power. Yeah, it's for power. But the other speaking of the water and
at least they're environmentally friendly.
renewable energy,
self-sustaining,
right? Renewable energy, renewable workforce.
The power is sketchy, just like with a lot of.
I mean, it's a renewable workforce. They just recycle those guys in and out. Right?
Okay, wait. I saw something about how like Olaf or whatever when he died. Like maybe that's what they're maybe maybe it's
Guess
like
it
a
is-
maybe
Soylent
that's what they're
Green
eating.
situation,
Soylent Green.
and they're just like
Soylent Green,
sucking
yeah.
down the dead prisoners.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Or like The Expanse is
Like,
like
you could
that
have.
too.
Are you sure you want flavor this week?
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you sure?
I want that Olaf flavor. Yeah, I want that Olaf flavor.
I'd rather it be crickets, like in the train one.
So speaking of the water, he says I can't swim. So he doesn't even realize he's surrounded by water.
Yeah.
I think, well, but it still speaks to what he says, right? Is that, I mean, the realization that kind of that Cassian brings him to, that you're gonna die anyways.
Yeah,
we may as well. And I love that Kino looks at Cassian as he quotes him, taking his own words from him.
Yeah, he did take his own
and
words.
says,
Didn't Cassian get that from Luthen?
uh,
Or from Nemec? So Cassian got that from. I think he got that from Luthen.
You're right. There was another reference to. Yes, I think you're right that there was another reference to this line. I mean, not quite as direct or on the nose in this, right? But it's the I'd rather go down. I'd rather die than doing this.
He's just like passing the message along.
Right.
That's a good point, Jason. I'll have to go back and look at that.
Again, these macro and micro themes as they recur.
And that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's so great.
These themes, right? I mean, obviously, all the Star Wars, it's been there. It's like there are definitely other themes there too. But one of the other things that I was thinking about that was always really standing out to me is like, why is it that we all love these sort of uprising, rebellion type stories? And then I realized, like, because throughout human history, there's always been oppressors and there's always been oppressed, right? And one point or another, and people were comparing it to now, and it's like, no. Throughout human history, from the beginning of humankind, there have been the oppressed and there have been the oppressor. And so we will always gravitate to these types of stories of the oppressed rising against the oppressor. Just because,
which is so insane.
It's
just insane.
It's part of human nature, It is part of human
nature.
And
hi.
Like, hey.
Sorry. Was not expecting that.
The cat is like, I am oppressed.
She's like, you haven't fed me dinner yet. Yeah.
She heard you talking about feeding humans, and then. But yeah.
Don't make my camera turn off, please. Anyway, sorry.
I also love, of course, in the previous episodes we saw Cassian sawing at that conduit pipe, which we discover was a plumbing pipe, and that was another happy surprise for me, because I was totally expecting, okay, he's trying to get into the network, he's trying to get at the cables, or see if he can, shut down something. It's like, no, he's just trying to get water. Just get water to short circuit the floor.
It was right next to the bathroom.
Which made sense, but of course I went to a different place with it. But which was a much more simple solution.
I thought water, electricity, like to me that made complete sense right from the beginning.
It totally makes sense. It's not where my head went.
Because this is science fiction. I mean, space opera, right? Like, it should be more complicated than that. And sometimes, what is the Sherlock quote? Sometimes the most obvious answer is the correct one, right?
Right. Let's see here, and it's
we have 5 minutes.
So yeah, the only other thing I'd call out, of course, is our last shot of Cassian making it to land with Melshi. Mushi.
I call him Mushi.
That's his pet name. Mushi. Off into that ashen wasteland. So when I first saw that, I interpreted that as them being the only 2 survivors, but I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think that they're just buddying up. Yeah, I think so too.
It took me a second watch to think that, because I was like, holy crap, of course they're like the only survivors, because they're the ones that are in Rogue One, like, right, everybody else drowns. But wait, what did Paul say? Lucky for them, the water shorted out the floor rather than electrocute everyone. Okay, but one thing I will say about that is that it did, But somebody had to be sacrificed for that to happen. It just so happened that that one guy didn't make it to a tabletop in time, so he was able to short it out. Because without somebody touching the floor, it would have just, like nothing would have happened, right?
Well, and also, I mean, it's just the, electricity always wants to go to the ground, right? So it's going to take the quickest way to the ground, which would be the water, which is how that works.
Right. Electricity, like shoots through the water, right? It uses it as a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I noticed that too, Tracy. I thought it was exactly that. It was that one poor guy who was the one that shorted the floor. Because if you see,
Gotta hustle.
They cut to Kino and he's standing on the floor.
He's standing on the floor and he looks
realizes,
like, oh my God.
He's like, okay, it's not electrified anymore.
Yeah.
No, I'm still here. I'm still alive, right? So, because he didn't have time to get on top of the table. So
I also love the shot of the remaining Imperial officers hiding in a closet.
Yeah, cowering
like
in fear.
sweating. Well, the guy in the front of the shot in the foreground is just dripping in sweat.
And it's true. There's 5,000 of them and like 80 at the most of them, right? 12 per floor or whatever the math was. But it was like, it's like, I think the math was like 5,000 prisoners and then like 84 guards, something like that. So, yeah.
Do you remember there were other ones of those stations out in the middle of that, whatever that crater was?
There are more stations too, There's more stations as well. It's not just theirs. So that makes me think too, like where, what's happening with them.
Those other prisoners are fucked because they are going to buckle down on security.
But really quickly, I forgot to mention this during Luthen. Luthen is very much trying to create a Reichstag fire, right?
Create a what?
The what now?
The Reichstag fire was basically create a terrorist type incident that making everybody to the Empire to crack down, right? Sort of false flag, false thing, kind of like what. So,
you mean a Phantom Menace? Huh?
Do you ever see that TikTok where the guy was like he renamed all the movies?
I did see,
It was like, no, it shouldn't be. This should be called Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
No. This one should be called The Empire Strikes Back.
That's pretty good.
The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up, what are your guys' predictions? We're now in the last 2 episodes. We've got some stuff to wrap up. What are your predictions?
Andor dies. I'm just kidding.
I said this in our group chat, and I still feel this is still in play. I think Clea is Andor's sister. Yeah. I think that's why.
How did I miss that in the group chat?
I don't know. I think you're muted, Andy.
I was doing a lot of home improvement this weekend.
Yes, sure. This is probably to be fair, it was probably like a week ago, but I did mention it. And it's probably one of those ones that we were like 3:00 in the morning where none of us could sleep.
Dude, and she doesn't even know that she wants to kill her brother?
Well, I don't see. That's what I'm wondering is part of me. The reason why I say that is Luthen knows so much about him.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she's the one that's telling him all this information because she's the one that is kind of keeping tabs on him.
How would she know? How would she know that?
I don't know, but it's
he's from.
It's my theory. Maybe she's the same thing. Like she's trying to figure
out.
I
like it. I like it, and I like the idea.
Who she is. Like she's the one, and she has more access because she's on Coruscant and with Luthen. She has more access to like those databases and like history. Like she.
What was his sister's name? Do you remember?
They don't say. I don't.
They don't
think
say.
They say.
In the first episode.
I think he does name her. Say.
But the lady says that nobody uses their real name.
Well, but it wasn't subtitled. But we do hear her call him Casa, and he calls her something. I can't remember what. But I do like this theory, Rodney. But I think I'm still gonna stick with my Deidre Miro is his sister theory. Because
she's blonde hair, blue-eyed Hitler wet dream.
But
but you can see her roots. And we do get that little bit of a line from her superior in ISB, saying, it's rare for
She's
us
from
to,
the gutter or whatever.
I don't remember what the exact line was, but of
You
of
people.
you,
He does one of those you people.
Yeah, you having made it into this position, and we've made some exceptions for you, but
Maybe
blah, blah,
Cyril is his sister.
blah. Sister, you have a sister. I'm also
There is
I am I am also going to guess that we do actually see this operation, and we meet Krieger and all of this, and we get to see how, because I mean, do we think that Luthen is really going to let the 50 men get slaughtered?
He's gonna do something.
Yeah.
I think yes, but he is also gonna try to,
because he's got to cover his tracks somehow, because I mean that's also 50 men they could potentially capture and question.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be as clear cut as he makes it sound to Lonnie. I think he's going to play both sides of it, right? Yeah. He's gonna try to make something out of it.
Do you think we will see another Forrest Whitaker appearance?
Yes. I think
Saul will come back.
Yeah.
I think Marva's gonna die by the end.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's true. We still have everyone on the Morlana. See if they start an uprising there or not.
I feel like Andor by the end of this. By the end of this series, I feel like Andor has no attachments.
But he's for sure gonna go back to Marva.
Yeah, he's got to go back.
Either
we got to do something else with Cinta, whether Cinta tries to kill him or Cinta, ends up helping. Yeah, something's got to happen. And of course, this is where we go. The inside baseball. We know that Bix is getting some kind of spin-off of some kind.
Really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think that was announced at some point that she's in talks for a spin-off.
I love her. I have loved her ever since Good Omens. She's in Good Omens, and she is so good. She is just adorable. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
I would be thrilled if Bix got her
more
own
for
series.
Bix. Something else has definitely got to happen with Bix.
Maybe Bix will get together with Amy Sedaris' character, and they'll be like, yes.
Someone's got to break her out first, though. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it'll be like they got to retake the hotel, or Marva's gonna die, and like she'll have made a plan to
extract her revenge.
Destroy the hotel, and like Andor will be the one to carry it out or something like that on her behalf to get Bix out or something. But
anyway,
interesting. Okay, all good stuff. Huh?
The fog incoming.
Fog incoming. Yes. Do we want to wrap it up? And
we do. Let's do crosstalk.
Cool.
I got.
Thank you, Tracy, for. Are you hanging out, or you got to go, right?
Oh well, I mean, I should go, but I want to talk along with the truths we cling to, depend on our own point of view. On this.
Fair enough.
Absolutes.
Do we have our brethren?
Yes.
Rodney?
Yes. I'll go ahead and bring them in.
Hello, and we have Chuck, and we have and Johnny.
Toastmasters.
Yeah.
My mom did Toastmasters. She loved it.
Where do y'all see that? It's on your background.
Yeah. We can't see your face, Johnny. We can only see. There you go.
He's in Toastmasters. Look at
Johnny.
him. Nerd.
You gotta come back on our show.
Nerd. I'm like, where are they seeing this? I looked down and she was like, I talked about the shirt or something on. He does have sound bites. Yeah. not going to even
Yeah.
attempt to explain it. Y'all
I
just
think
gonna
he's
take it.
Judge Judy over here. Look,
Judge Johnny.
had his robe on, had a gavel in his hand. He was ready.
He has it on him at the ready, because you never know.
You know.
How are you
all
gentlemen
doing?
tonight?
Well, doing well. How you doing?
All
How's Andor,
right.
you all? I just started.
You just started. Oh, it's gonna get good. It's
Binge
gonna
worthy,
just,
baby. Binge
just
worthy.
you just stay the course. Just it will
Okay.
pay off. It will pay
Okay.
off.
It doesn't feel like a Star Wars anything.
It really
It felt
doesn't.
like a TV show.
Well, and it will continue to. I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, I think we're all loving this show. The fans are really starting to warm up to it finally. But I'm sure there are a bunch of kids who are like, "Where's the lightsabers? Why are they talking so much?"
But that's one of the
There is
things
a lot
people
of
loved
talking.
about Rogue One was
Yeah.
that there weren't lightsabers, right? Like it was, I don't know. And so for people to kind of like not have faith in Andor in the beginning was kind of mind blowing to me, because it's like, oh, if you liked Rogue One, like just.
But now they're kind of like expanding the universe. It's a little bit something for everybody. If you want lifesavers, see Tales of the Jedi. You'll get some
Right,
badass
totally.
lightsabers in there. So
It's like Section 31 for Star Trek. Like, just come on.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's sort of the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the model that Marvel, basically proved, right? Is that
Yeah.
you could get someone who's into political drama to watch a heist movie, even if they're not into the heist movie, because they already saw Captain America and Avengers movies, and they can connect those dots, right? I mean, that's the multi-platforming model that Disney is famous for now.
It's gonna be very interesting how they connect the dots now, because they haven't connected anything
So
in these last chapters.
and do they need to, right? Does Star Wars need to connect all the dots in here? So can Andor just be a good story on its own?
Okay. Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Hi.
Last chapter. Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah. He's watched y'all stream before too. He talks about it to me. You have to have your microphone on, Rick. I think your microphone's off. Yeah.
Star Wars.
Yeah. He's watched y'all stream before. Yeah, he talks about it to me. You have to have your microphone and you got YouTube on too.
Yeah, we're picking up your.
You gotta mute your YouTube too. Yeah. He's new to this, guys. He's new to this.
Apparently, I am too, because I have my background.
Mm. Okay.
I was surprised by how much I liked it, actually.
Really?
I didn't really know much about it. Like, I didn't really look into what it was beforehand. I knew it had stuff. I knew it had something to do with Ahsoka and Dooku, but I've never I like the stories that the animated series bring forth, but I'm not a huge fan of the animation. So a lot of times I actually will be doing other things while I'm listening to the stories because I like the stories so much. But I actually paid really close attention to Tales of the Jedi, and because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, because it was filling in so many random gaps that you didn't even know needed filling, that I was like, ooh, okay, here we go.
I enjoy the Ahsoka stuff, but I mean, really, I think there's so much heavy lifting happening with the Dooku stuff.
Yeah.
Which was really fascinating to get into.
Mace Windu stuff was amazing. Because Yoda, he's been making up a language for the
Because Yoda is dyslexic. God, so ignorant.
Yoda always has to answer for him now. She like, I don't know why he talks like that. We don't talk that way.
Yoda
So there was. Sorry. Say it again.
Yoda rode the short X-wing to school.
Yeah.
I will say that I did actually see an article up with an interview with Filoni, and so he has said that Yoda speaks the way he does in honor of his master, but it is not necessarily an accent of speech like for his race.
Do we know who Yoda's master was?
I don't know that we
Yoda
do.
800 years old.
Yeah.
Like he just
So Filoni is sitting on this basically. He just basically punted.
If
he punted
Filoni
the answer
is
down
sitting
the...
on it, then we're gonna see it at some point.
Yeah. He says one possible explanation as to why Yaddle speaks differently is Yoda is much older than Yaddle.
Okay.
He's much older.
Yeah, right. I don't.
No. He says he's speaking because of the old generation before they met humans.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
before they met humans. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was just really glad to see more Yaddle.
I mean, so I will say, I at one point I had went to a friend's PowerPoint party, and I had prepared this whole.
The Jennifer?
Yeah, I had prepared this whole thing, and basically it was about how language isn't just communication; it's also, we don't think of it as being a form of logic, right? Because we think in sentence structure. We all grew up with English, we think in English syntax, which means we prioritize the subject. We go, I need to go to the bathroom. I, meaning me, is the most important statement that sets up everything else. And if I think that, that's how I see how I see the world. And it speaks to our culture, which is very individualistic. If you compare that to, say, in Chinese, if I were going to ask how to go to the bathroom, I would say "chi sa hai bin do," which would be "chi sa" is like the toilet, hai bin do, hai is where, right? There is no subject in that speaks to the collectivist mindset, where you are not even the last name goes first, right? If I say my name in Chinese, it's Lo Zifai, which is Lo is the family name, and then my individual name comes second to that. So when you hear people with accents, right, it's not just in terms of what they are not able to enunciate, but it's also, you hear it's their syntax, which because they are still thinking in their base language. So, and of course, then I go with this, and I'm trying to avoid anything nerdy. Well, okay, anything geeky, super nerdy. As I go through this, explaining all of this in much more detail, of course, and then the end line of it. So then, is when we hear Yoda speak. Yoda speaks in past participle, in which case he is always prioritizing action over subject.
I need to.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So he is about action, which is why he's willing to sacrifice, Leia and Han, which is why he's willing to sacrifice, for the greater good. And that is his mindset.
I get it. Yeah, I agree with him, though. He's Japanese that way. He's Asian that way. Sacrifice them. They're worth the sacrifice. They are worth it. Mm-hmm.
But in reality, it was just Frank Oz going, "Oh, I make this funny voice. Oh, I talk funny."
Yeah.
Not to extend crosstalk, but Rodney, I don't know if you know Tagalog, but is that kind of how Tagalog is as well, or is it more like Spanish? Like how is that?
Mm. Yeah.
About the X part.
The X part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Not a word.
Huh. Yeah. So the creation of P9 was more of an anglicization of Tagalog to genderize a non-gendered thing. That's fascinating.
Interesting. Mm.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On Tales of the Jedi, one story I didn't need was the Ahsoka origin story. I didn't need that story.
Oh,
When she was a baby, I didn't need that story.
Yeah, I thought it was neat actually, because it's
I
a
can
thematic thing, right? It is about, and it's also Filoni's thing, right? And it's like, if you can either be into or not into Filoni's thing, but he very much wants to get into these allegories,
He does.
mythic allegories about life and death, and
I see what you mean, though, that in the grand scheme of things, in the grand
Mhm.
storyline, it didn't contribute anything to that other than, okay, this is how we find out that Ahsoka is
Had-
force sensitive.
More sensitive, yeah.
Right. But as far as like every other story, like contributed
Mhm.
to what eventually became like Phantom Menace, what became like A New Hope, all of that. I can see what you mean.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but
I can
see-
also
was
make an
okay, but-
argument.
Mhm.
I mean, I can also make an argument though, but it's like thematically, it is the opening thesis to both stories of Dooku and Ahsoka in terms of respecting life, and accepting death,
Mhm.
right? Which is basically that theme recurs in pretty much every episode after that, right? Of how both characters are able to accept or not accept their fate. And it kind of introduces those principles. But yes, on like micro level, on one of those levels, yeah, it has less payoff, and I feel it.
Yeah.
You guys, we have stolen 20 minutes of Geek Beast's time now.
No, thanks for coming out, everybody.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Have this conversation.
Great.
I also want to hear what people what people's thoughts are about Black Panther too, because
Also,
yeah.
pee really need to.
okay.
She's like, you see me drink down this water.
I'm like bouncing up and down on my chair, but my chair makes farting noises, so I'm trying really hard not to bounce up and down on it.
Okay.
So that said, we'll wrap up. If you should stick around for Geek Beast, what are you guys talking about today?
Black Panther.
Black Panther, all right.
Black Panther. We're gonna talk,
I saw it yesterday.
So y'all should come in and actually, if y'all want to join in the chat, and also we might talk about a couple of news stories.
Cool.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur have their song came out, and I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited.
Cried. The whole entrance, all through the Marvel part, I cried. Just cried. Anyway.
So that said, you should stick around for that. Let's we continue to talk more. Come back next week. We're gonna get into episode 11, the penultimate episode of Andor. Andor season 1. Very exciting. We'll see what they end up doing with this. And of course, we want to see all of your. Oh yeah, and then we're gonna get into the rest of Tales of the Jedi a little deeper with our cohorts. We also want to see all of your Star Wars creations. Do you make cosplay?
Nobody's gonna send it. Just skip that part.
Droids. No one's fine. I want to try. In theory, they might someday. God,
okay.
So cynical. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're here on the Geekish Network. Follow the Geekish Network on YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for joining us here on Monday nights. Check out all the schedules for the other great shows that are on here throughout the rest of the week. And thank you again for joining us, Rodney, on camera. We are the Pod Squadron. The what? The Gob Squadron? What did I say?
The Gob
The
Squadron?
Pod Squadron. Please check out our content on podsquadron.com. Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. For podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. I am Chinese Pirate at ChinesePirate _ on all platforms.
I'm always impressed how you rattle through that. I am Tracy, the hot nerd girl. You can just find me whenever you Google that.
And look for Feral Geek and Beyond Forever Studios. And then Rodney? There you go. All wings return to base, course laid in, prepare to make the jump to light speed on my mark. And remember, the truths we cling to depend on your own point of view. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. Good night.
I have to pee.